Sherwood Urban Farm, and in today's video we are going to be processing my 3.5 kilograms of homegrown tomatoes. So this season I planted 46 tomato plants in my garden, in various areas in the garden. Some of them didn't perform as well as others, like the ones that were under the lemon tree. Well, not exactly under the lemon tree, but next to the lemon tree. They ended up getting a lot more shade than I had thought, because the white stinkwood had got its leaves and then it shaded it out. Anyway, so it didn't do as well. But some of the others had just, they were amazing. In some of my other videos, even my harvest video, the last video, you'll see how many of these big red ones I harvested, and they're just great. So I've got two things I want to, one is I'm going to actually just wing it. I'm going to try it. I haven't tried the one option to preserve the tomatoes, and the second one I have already tried it, and I am so impressed with this. It's a tomato sauce recipe that you can use. You can use it in your pastas. You can use it probably as a base, when you put on for your pizzas, for your pizza bases. And you can also, if you add a little bit of sugar to it, you can use it as like a proper tomato sauce with your chips. So I was very happy with that recipe, so I'm going to do that as well. I have, what kind of tomatoes have I got? I have got a variety. I've got cocktail tomatoes, I've got Roma tomatoes, and then I've got these big red ones. What I thought I'm going to do, the first option was drying them. That's what I wanted to say. I want to dry them. Now they would call them sun-dried, but I don't know. I'm not comfortable leaving tomatoes outside for flies and things to sit on, and it takes very long. It can take, it depends on your weather. So it's very hot now, so it should probably take a week or so, but it could take longer. And I'm just like, I don't know about that. So I'm going to try to do my sun-dried tomatoes, in the house. And I'm just going to put a fan on them. I know you can do it in the oven, but then that also takes hours. And with the whole energy problem here in South Africa, and the rising costs of electricity, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try with a little fan, and we'll see how we go. So for the tomato sauce, I'm only going to use the larger tomatoes. I'm not going to use the cocktail tomatoes, because I thought those ones are sweeter and they would probably taste better if I dry them. So, and they're smaller, so it should work out better. So I'm just going to separate, I've got them all in this one big basket. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, because I'm going to roast these, I'm going to just spray just so that it doesn't stick, with some cooking and baking spray. The other recipe I used some olive oil, but because I want to bottle these, it's not recommended to use the olive oil when roasting them. So I'm just going to cut these up into smaller pieces, and it doesn't have to look nice at all. It's just got to be smaller, so that you can just put it all on your little baking tray. And even if it has some bad parts on it, then that's also fine. You can just cut that off, and you cut it up into chunks. I'm also going to save some of the seeds of this big red one to plant it again next season. I take some of the seeds like that, and then I put it on a paper towel to dry, and then sometimes I just break the little paper towel. If it gets all dry like that and then you can't get it off, then I plant it with a bits of paper towel as well, and it just works fine. Spread it out a bit. Some people soak it and they get all the stuff off, the fleshy bits, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. That sounds like a lot of effort to me. So that's what it looks like. I'm saving these seeds for next season. I should probably take this where the stalk is connected to the fruit. I should probably take that off. I don't think that's going to taste nice in the sauce. Okay, so once you've cut up all your tomatoes, the reason why I'm only doing this one tray is because I'm going to use my little oven. I'm not going to fire up the biggest oven I have. I'm just going to use that little oven, and it can only take this little tray. So I'm going to just do it in 2 batches. And then what I'm going to do now is, this is oreganum, whatever you call it, however you want to pronounce it, out of the garden. So I'm just going to take some of the leaves off of the stems and sprinkle that over the top of the tomatoes, like that. I just love oregano. This is one of my favorites. Actually, and like, I can put it in everything. I just whack it in everything. And thyme, I also enjoy that as well. What I might do with the thyme is actually just take the softer parts of the stem and just put it on, and then I'll actually, no, I am just going to do this. I'm going to just throw it on like this, and then I will pick out, after it's finished roasting, I'll just pick out the harder stems. I don't want those in my sauce. Here we go. And then some black pepper. And now I'm going to use some salt. I think I'll just, it's about a teaspoon of salt. Yeah, about a teaspoon. And then we'll just sprinkle that over. There we go. No, not quite half a teaspoon. Call it half a teaspoon. Then I'm going to put it in the oven, and until it is roasted, it must be nice and, you know, like have little bits of burnt. I wouldn't call it golden brown. It's not a cake, you know. Right, let's stick it in the oven. So on this little oven, I've got it at 250, and then I'll leave it in for about half an hour at that temperature. Right, so this batch is ready to come out. There we go. See the little bits of burnt black bits, but that's fine. That's what we want. I'm just going to quickly take out the little stalks. Now I'm going to put it into a big pot. So while I have those tomatoes in the oven, I'm going to start on my sun-dried tomatoes. So I did decide to keep one of these sort of medium-sized tomatoes, and then I have also got the Romas Al Red. They do well for doing sun-dried tomatoes. Okay, so what we're going to do is cutting the tomatoes. The bigger ones I'm going to cut sort of maybe in 6s, and then removing the seeds and whatever pulp there is. Ideally, if you can, one should cut it sort of like you would slice an apple, so then you have kind of like wedges. That's with the bigger ones. And then, yeah, so we just want to take this out, because obviously that is going to, if you keep the seeds and all that pulpy stuff in, that's just going to take really long to dry. So you want to take all of that out. I'm not going to do it with the smaller ones. I'm not going to take the seeds out. I'm just going to cut them in half. So with this recipe, you also need to have the fresh herbs. I'm sure you could use dried herbs as well if you don't have any fresh herbs. The same with the other one. I just happen to have it, and it's the purpose of growing it, right? So I'm going to strip the leaves off, and then I will be chopping it finely and mixing it in with the tomatoes that I want to dry. So now I'm just going to chop it finely so that it can mix evenly with those tomatoes. So I've got it in this flat dish. I'm not going to leave it in this dish to do the drying. This is just for the mixing. And looks like quite a lot. Maybe I've got too much. I don't think it's going to matter. Oh, that's fine. It's quite wet. I really hope this is going to work out. Now my plan is, this is like my own invention. I'm not following any recipe. They're all saying put it in the dehydrator. We actually have got a biltong dryer, a homemade one, of course. And the only problem with that is it's designed for the biltong and the druivenworst to hang. So it's not designed for flat things. So that's why I thought, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use these cooling racks. And then I'm going to, just a second, take baking paper. I don't know if there's a difference between parchment paper, baking paper. Maybe there is. I suppose this has got a bit of a waxy finish. Well, this is what I've got. So I'm going to take this and I am going to put that on top. Oh, I'm just going to cut it with a scissor. On top of my drying racks. The purpose of the parchment, of this, not parchment paper, of the baking paper is also so that the tomatoes don't fall through the little wires. Now I'm going to place them with the skin side down on the baking paper. So ideally you want to have all your pieces more or less the same thickness. Now some of them are not, some of them are quite thin. So I'm just going to remove the ones that have dried first. I'm going to remove them first. And that's the whole idea about sort of having it all the same thickness, but this is a kitchen, a home kitchen. It's not a factory. And we wing it here, that's what happens. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, some of them I just left the seeds in because I figured they were small enough, so that should be fine. Now I'm going to place it in front of the fan. Put them like that. Yeah, I'm just going to put them like that. And then this is my little fan. It's a little USB fan. And it's going to blow. Yeah. Going to blow over them, and we'll see how this works. Now you can bring the tomatoes to boil so that they can reduce a little bit more. So you must allow the tomatoes to cool down a little bit after you've reduced them on the stove, and then I'm going to put it in my blender. But you know what you could also do is you could use your stick blender straight in here. I probably could, but I'm going to put it in here now. I think it might be easier to pour it into the jars from this big jug. Maybe I'm going to spoon it in. I think that's what I might do. Let me rather do that. Let me rather actually just take it off of here. I think that's safer. It's still quite hot, but it's not boiling. So what some people do is they don't put any of the herbs in. They just do the tomatoes, roasted tomatoes, or they sort of like get that caramelized flavor, and then you can use it as a base for anything else. But I'm going to add these herbs to everything I'm going to make anyway, so I may as well just do this. I think I can just pour it. There we go. Better. And then I'm going to add a dollop of honey. Just for the, to counter the sour. Ooh, there we go. Just that sort of sour acidic to counter the acidity. Okay. Let's put this lid on. So now I'm going to do something that I've not done before, and that is hot bath canning. So over the years, my gran and my aunt and myself, whenever we've made jam, we've always just sort of, sometimes I haven't even heated the jar. I'll make the jam, as it's so hot and bubbly, I just pour it straight into the jar, put the lid on, like I've done with my other things I've showed you on Eat What You Grow cooking show, and it's been fun. However, I did have 2 jars of beetroot preserve go bad on me, but I think that the lids were faulty. So you're supposed to use those 2-piece lids when you're doing canning. They call it canning. I suppose it's from before they were jar. I don't know why they call it canning. It's canning, right? So canning. And I've only ever had that happen that time. But now I'm like quite cautious. So if I've made something, if I've preserved something, then I just stick it in the fridge, because I'm concerned that maybe the lid didn't seal properly or whatever. So I don't want to lose my stuff. Anyway, so now I'm going to do this hot bath canning. And I'm not going to use the 2-piece lids. I have found a site that says you can use the 1-piece lid. And these are relatively new lids, so I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to see how that goes. So let's go along and see how this happens. To me, this just looks actually a little bit scary, because you've got to submerge the whole jar into this water. You have to have something underneath it. And my pressure cooker came with a little basket thingy to lift it off the actual base of the pot. And the reason why you want to do that is because when the water boils, then it's going to push the jars over. So this is able to allow the bubbles to come out around the jars and not push the jars over, that they hit against each other and then break, and there's your stuff all ruined. So I'm going to do this now just because I really want to not lose any of my precious tomatoes that I've grown in my garden, for them to go off. So let's do that. Okay, so I've got it in my pressure cooker. I put this the jars inside the basket in here, and I heated them up. Now I'm going to take them out. Ooh, sherbet. The Brightongs is not the greatest tool for this, but it will work. You get these special things. I must actually just go to the console shop. They've got these special like tong things that you bring the jars out with. So I did this so that it's sterilized and that they're hot. So when I put the hot stuff in, then it's going to not burst the jars. But I don't, it might happen, but I've never had that happen. And I've done my jams and everything like this without heating the jars first. Okay. Here we go. Right, so now I'm going to pour this in here. Oh, it's a mess. That means I'm going to need to get them. Okay, let me just see if I can maybe just do this. I don't feel like getting the funnel. And I've only got a plastic funnel and plastic and hot stuff. I don't know. So you've got to leave it about 2.5 centimeters or so from the top, and then also. They said 1/4 of an inch, whatever that is. 25 divided by 4. Oh dear, that one's a bit full. Okay, that's fine. I will put that in another bag and use it immediately. Right, then you have to make sure that there's no food or whatever where the lid is going to go, so otherwise it will not seal properly. Then put the lids on, just so that finger tight. That's what they say. You don't want to try and tighten it as tight as possible, because now I'm going to put it back in the boiling water for 10 minutes. They're going to be submerged in that water. Whew, I'll tell you, I'm nervous, but anyways, let's do it. Okay, so now it's supposed to cover the jars. Yeah, it's going to work. I hope the water's not going in there. Oh dear. Oh, shoot. I hope the water's not going in there. I'm going to have to spoon some of this water out. Okay. There it is, boiling away. So it's got to do this for 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to take it out with the good old Bratongs. Okay, I don't think any germ is going to survive this. You can see how it's bubbling in there. It's just still a bit nerve-wracking. Maybe when you do it often, then it's not going to be so scary. But it's just so hot, It's like I'm scared of things bursting and exploding, but it looks okay. It looks like we're doing okay. So I got 4.5 jars from all those tomatoes. Plus, there's still the tomatoes that are busy drying under the fan. And let me tell you, those tomatoes are looking considerably dry already. It's probably been like 2 hours. So I'm quite hopeful for this process. And it's a little USB fan, so it's not taking up a whole lot of electricity. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, then please like and subscribe and share with your friends. And don't forget that notification bell so that you will know when I'm uploading a new video. In the meantime, I hope that your tomatoes will grow fantastically, and I hope that you have a fantastic day further.